right, take a look at this. The Shanghai falling more than 6% today. Concerns that China hasn't got its act together. And yet, what has happened in the past didn't happen again today. The world didn't go into the tank. If anything, mixed in Europe, relatively okay everywhere else, including here in the USA, with the Dow up about 60 points. What are we to make of that? Danielle DiMartino booth on all of this. You know, Danielle, first of all, is a Dallas Federal Reserve advisor, expert, and I'm looking at this, Danielle, and saying, that's a big deal when we don't make a big deal of a huge China sell-off.
Yeah, markets that are agnostic to big moves always concern me. I think yesterday's price action tells us right now that the world's focus is more than anything else on the price of oil. Of course, the winds can change, right, and that can change as well. But it was a significant move in China, and it was a significant move for very worrisome reasons. So I'm really surprised that we haven't seen more reaction in our own markets.
So I was surprised even in Asia we didn't see more reaction. But right, the read I got, I don't know from when you used to be at the Dallas Federal Reserve there, whether it was like a one-off. In other words, China seems to be saying we still can't, you know, get our act under control. We're still concerned about watching our financials, our real estate, what have you, a slowdown that's obvious in the manufacturing and the service sector. And they might be saying elsewhere, that seems to be kind of unique to them. Is it?
Well, look, Neil, you remember this firm called Bear Stearns.
Right, right.
What happened last night was a matter of overnight lending rates. When banks are lending to each other in the overnight market, those rates shot up. And when you start to hear rumblings about this bank doesn't trust this bank, you have to wonder how much control the Chinese policymakers can have over the situation. This is a particularly awkward time for them because they're hosting the G20 starting tomorrow.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But the trouble with banks lending to themselves in China, again, to understand this half-full glass read, was that's them having the difficulty doing that. That's not like U.S. bankers having that problem here or U.S. bankers dealing with British bankers. You say, well.
So every time the Chinese try and pull back control because they want, well, they want to have their cake and eat it too, to use a cliche. They want to have an open financial system. They want to communicate to the world that they're liberalizing their capital markets.
Yeah.
But by the same token, it's a communist regime. So they keep going back and forth between to control or not to control. And if we're going to control the banks, how are we going to do it? And if we pull back like what happened last night, then there's havoc in the markets. So they're trying to do too many things at once.
Well put. Well put. Danielle, thank you, as always.